It's the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. Here today with head wrestling coach at Wisconsin-La Crosse, Dave Malecek. We've got a big event coming up November 12th, Mitchell Hall, 7 p.m. A unique D1, D2, D3 triple duel of wrestling action with a lot of ties to Wisconsin and yourself. We'll get to that in a second. But, Coach, always one of my favorite people to see in the world of wrestling, not just Division III wrestling. Just saw you recently, too. Welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me on, man. This is a huge honor. I'm kind of like in awe, like, holy smokes, we're here with Jason Bryant. This is great.
Well, you just had me on Mondays with Malecek last week. So, I mean, it's not like this is that new for you. I mean, it's not like, I should be starstruck here because, I mean, you're the only guy of the two of us that actually placed at the national tournament at the Division I level and competed there 4 times. So, I've been to like 19 of them, but I never actually stepped foot in the mat. So, you win.
Yeah, but you've been to the Olympics and the World Championships, and that's something that, I tell you what, you got a leg up, no pun intended, but you're doing
not
well,
as a competitor, not as a competitor, clearly, but I have a lot of fun doing what I do, and one of the great things I've had the opportunity to do is cover, announce, and do a lot of different things with the Division III championships over the years. We'll get to that in a little bit about how much La Crosse is an awesome host for it. We didn't get to host it there last year because of, what happened, but we'll talk a little bit about the staff and your administration there. But before we get to what makes you tick and what has you sitting in La Crosse for the last 16 years, the uniqueness of what we've got coming up on November 12th, that's a Friday, 7 p.m., Mitchell Hall. You are going D1, Wisconsin versus Little Rock, D2, Upper Iowa versus Ouachita Baptist, also from Arkansas, and D3, yourself hosting University of the Ozarks. Where does the idea come from here?
Well, Jason, that's a great question. And, always here at UWL trying to give these guys a great experience. I know that when we go to certain duels and there's maybe 100 people there and 75 people are UW-La Crosse people, we want to wrestle in front of bigger crowds. We want to give these guys an opportunity to wrestle in front of a ton of people, showcase what they've been working so hard. At Division III with no scholarships, these guys want to get out and perform in front of people and show that they work really hard and they can score a lot of points and bring some excitement to wrestling. So I had this idea of like, hey, why not try to get something on board with, getting with Wisconsin. And that was back when Barry Davis was still here, and Barry was very interested and wanted to do it. And then he retired, and then they hired Chris Bono. And so I reached out to Bono right away. And obviously that was a lot on his plate right when he got hired, that throwing all these ideas at him. And he's kind of like, oh, just kind of pump the brakes there, Malecek. I just got in the office. And so he said, just give me a couple years. And I was working real hard to get Doug Schwab in Northern Iowa, and he was on board along with Wisconsin. But then, obviously being an alum of UNI, I'd love to have those 2 schools here, and then Division III and then Division II, and why not? And with those connections, but we just kind of got working through it. And all of a sudden Chris got in touch with me about a year ago and said, I'm in, let's do this. And then the real key to all this, Jason, was getting that other Division I school. And he jumped right in and said, hey, let's reach out to these certain schools and see if they'll do it. And right away, Little Rock got on board, and they have some Wisconsin guys on their roster. Why not bring them back to the great state of Wisconsin? And then we really were trying to get Parkside involved too, but they were in the process of hiring a new coach when we were getting this all set in stone, and I didn't want to keep pushing it off. And unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, we weren't able to get Parkside in, but we were able to get Upper Iowa with Heath Grimm, and Heath and I are high school teammates, and get a great opportunity to bring those guys in. And then all 3 schools were from Arkansas, as I reached out to some Division III schools, and then Leroy was one of the first ones to get right back to me. Actually, I'd sent him an email and a text, and he goes, let me think about it. Man, within an hour, he called me back and said, we're in. And so it was kind of a unique situation. I had an opportunity to coach Leroy when I was an assistant at Wartburg, and it was awesome. And you get that chance to bring these 3 schools together, all from Arkansas, to come up to Wisconsin. Then you get these other 3 schools, and I have 3 mats. And man, I can't think of a better way to start the season off on November 12th at home. We should have a great crowd. We have an amazing announcer, and we're just going to see what happens and see if we can make this grow and just really kind of show young athletes and people, not only here in La Crosse, but in the great state of Wisconsin. We got amazing wrestling at all 3 divisions, 1, 2, and 3. And we just want to make it something special.
Yeah, you talk about the divisional lineup there. I mean, of course, the University of Wisconsin being the flagship, and then all the campus locations, of course, Whitewater, La Crosse, Oshkosh, Stevens Point, Parkside in Division II. So you've got the three NCAA divisions. The only thing missing is we get the NAIA school in town right down the street. Maybe you can get a program, and then get the women's dual because Johnny Johnson. We talked about Stevens Point before we started. They've got a women's team, so we can get. There's ways to add to this, Dave.
Oh, absolutely, Jason. That's exactly like that vision. You start seeing it down the road. Like I think it can only get bigger. I mean, we had to get this first step. We had to get this started now with 1, 2, and 3. And absolutely, may we get all the NAIAs and figure that out. And obviously the women's wrestling too. We got a lot of connections with the women's wrestling that we would love to have a women's duel. I mean, just packed. And I want to move it down to La Crosse Center too. I love our gym, but it only seats 2,800. I'd love to get 6,500 in the La Crosse Center, 7,000 in La Crosse Center, and really make it big, put 6 mats out there and just showcase everything.
Yeah, and what it is kind of shades of the non-Division I duels, the multi-division national duels, in the old way at the Unidome when we had. I remember one year, Kyle Klingman and I talk about this year specific, where I think Lindenwood was in the NAI still wrestling Southern Oregon, and there was a brawl. I think Iowa and Iowa State were over on one. Wartburg, Augsburg, might have been you guys in there too. I can't remember exactly who it was that year, but everybody's attention got drawn to this heavyweight match with Lindenwood and Southern Oregon, and that's the type of environment I'm hoping to see here. Is you've got your Badger fans are going to come down, and one thing I'll give Wisconsin wrestling fans a lot of credit. One, it's a tremendous state organization with their USA Wrestling chapter, and two, there are a lot of local kids that say, you know what, I don't need to necessarily go a route that I'm not ready for, or I want to look at my education. I'm looking at it financially. All these schools, the UW schools within the WIAC, loaded with Wisconsin kids that stay home. They perform. They get their matches in the opens against the D1, D2 guys. So there's the opportunity, and there's the knowledge of Division II and Division III really does exist pretty well there in Wisconsin. So that's one thing I do like about an event like this is you're not going to have a lot of people be like, oh, who's that kid? They're going to remember pretty much every kid that's on those teams.
Mm-hmm. And there's some kids from, Wisconsin, like I said, on the Little Rock roster. Obviously, we got a ton of guys from Wisconsin on our roster. Upper Iowa's got some guys on their roster. So, we're definitely looking forward to that, Jason, and like keeping all the great kids in the state of Wisconsin here in the state of Wisconsin, not letting them leave. But, you're not going to keep them all, but we'd love to. All right. We'd love to keep all those guys here and keep the success right here in the state and help us bring championships home right here.
Yeah, talk about the there's 3 Bianchis on the roster at Little Rock. Even though Paul is a graduate student, he's not going to use his last year of eligibility. But last week I got a primer, Dave. I was down in Little Rock for the Trojan Open, so I got to see all 3 of these schools. Okay. And you know what? Yes, I was telling people get up to La Crosse. This is Little Rock's next match is November 12th, blah blah blah, and then it's like, oh, by the way, Ouachita and Ozarks will be there too. So maybe they can all share a bus together. But and Kevin Crutcher even came up to me, the coach at Ouachita. Came up to me before he even said anything. He goes, Ouachita. So he was making sure. I think I say Ouachita. So I said more of a itch versus a sh. So regardless, that's one thing your fans are going to learn is how to say OUA. I don't even know how to spell it off the top of my head, but it's Ouachita. Like wash it off.
Ouachita.
Yeah, wash it off. Wash it off. Ouachita. That's how you say it. So they've got some pretty good kids too. So and Heath always has a really good program, really solid dual meet team in Upper Iowa. As you said, an Osage age. As I've mentioned to you a couple times, and on Mondays with Malecek, my next door neighbor plays women's soccer at Upper Iowa. So, and where did she go to high school, Dave? Here's a connection to all this. Irondale High School, where your last national champion went.
Yeah, so, Dustin Wyman. That's right. 2017 was our last national champ. So
and you talk about keeping the kids in state. You've come over here. You've stolen some kids from the other side of the river in Minnesota, brought them over to La Crosse.
Yeah, we've tried it. We've got into Minnesota a little bit. Some great young men, and I actually had more of them this year. And so it's been nice to get that just across the river, And being a Minnesota Vikings fan, I feel really lonely here in the state of Wisconsin.
I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry.
It's been
my 9-year-old. She's a Vikings fan. She kind of my wife had her hands on that immediately. I get off a plane one time and they pick me up at the airport, and Lucy is 2, I think, at that time, and she's got a little Vikings cheerleader outfit on. I'm like, this has got to end, because my mom then made her a Vikings blanket. So when my youngest daughter was born, I'm like, Mom, you're going to need to send me a Buccaneers blanket. So I have at least got one child is the Bucs fan, the other child is the Vikings fan. Now Lucy did come crying last week after the Vikings lost because why did the Vikings lose? They had 31. I'm like, I'm sorry. I didn't want to make fun of her because I'm like, sorry, kiddo, you're a Vikings fan. Prepare for a lifetime of disappointment.
Jason, I've been such a little kid in northern Iowa, growing up in Iowa, and we don't have pro football, so living close to the Minnesota border. Been a Vikings fan since '73. And I've seen them win. I've seen them lose, just never win that Super Bowl. But, man, it's even tougher now living in Wisconsin. Obviously, the Packers are doing well. And so it's really tough. Monday mornings are really tough when we come in. The Vikes lose again. And the guys kind of know, like, hey, just let it go. Don't bother coach with the Viking stuff. I have Viking stuff in my office, but it's been tough. So it's nice to get some of those Minnesota recruits in here to UW-La Crosse to help me with my following. And we share our sorrow together, Jason.
Yeah, especially the Bianchis. I saw Paul last week wearing his Packers hat. So that's what. And my mother-in-law is from Wisconsin. My father-in-law is from Minnesota. So one's a Vikings fan, one's a Packers fan. They call that a mixed marriage here in Minnesota. Now, moving to those recruiting grounds. We've talked previously when you'd bring your team over to the Augie Open with some of your reserves and such. But coming into Minnesota, what's the selling point? Because Augsburg's here, Division III power. Steve Costanzo has done an amazing job at building St. Cloud State into they've got the second longest win streak in college wrestling right now behind Grandview. And then you got Jim McCoskey's always done a great job at Mankato. There's a lot of Division III schools here, a lot of Division II schools here. What's it like, and how tough is it to pull a kid from across the river into La Crosse?
Well, I think, Jason, that's a great question. We got a lot of things going our way, I think, as a university. I mean, obviously, academically, we're one of the best in the Midwest, not just Wisconsin, one of the best in the Midwest with all our different majors. And then the big difference between us and the small, maybe privates in Wisconsin or in Minnesota is that we're 10,000 students. And then the other thing is the price tag. I mean, it's in-state. They get reciprocity with Minnesota, gets in-state tuition here in Wisconsin. That definitely helps. But then just the environment that we have here on campus with our facilities. You like being in the Bluffs. You're by the Mississippi River. You got what I call a city, coming from small town Iowa, I call this a city, 55,000 people, just a city with no traffic. But, it's got everything for you. But really, we got to find the right guys that can handle the academic load, that can handle, the training part, and just finding the right guys. I think as every college coach will tell you, you got to do your job. You got to do your research and find those right guys. And, man, there's some great wrestling in the state of Minnesota as there is in Wisconsin, really here in the Midwest. But you find those right guys in Minnesota that click and that you want to have part of your program and that can handle the academic rigor, because it's tough to get into school here, unlike most other schools, but it's pretty tough. But I feel like our guys are well prepared as they come in and then they're graduating. When they leave here, Jason, just the degree they get, they're becoming a better man and they're going to win a lot of wrestling matches. So we feel like we got something pretty special going here in La Crosse.
It's also pretty unique in terms of if you look at the landscape of Division III schools, a lot of private schools. There are not that many public schools within Division III with wrestling programs. So you've got this, we mentioned the Wisconsin schools within the WIAC, but you got a couple in the Northeast here and there. But how much does that really help? You talk about the sticker price, but how much does that really help in selling the idea to kids to maybe go a little further away from home when there may be that private school that's in the neighborhood?
Right. I think that is. They gotta find out if it's a right fit for them, their journey. We've had guys come on campus and like fall in love and like, hey, we're committing right now. We're going to wrestle there. But we've also had guys come in. It just wasn't for them. Maybe they wanted more of a small town private school, more like their high school. But we just got to find the right guys in there, Jason. I think one of those unique things, like you had said earlier, I mean, the SUNYs out on the East Coast and as state schools, and then really the Wisconsin schools, that's the only state schools really in Division III. And you get looking at it, and the success rate of a state school, I mean, us and Whitewater are the only two that have been up there, in the top three for quite a while. So the private schools have pretty much been in the top four for a long time. You look at the last couple of years. And so we really, as a state school, got to find our niche. And that's one of those things that, like, you try to find out, like, we don't want to be the private school. We don't want to try to be like any other school. We got our own little niche right here at UW-La Crosse. We need to be ourselves, and like what makes us tick and what makes us successful and what we have to offer here is different than everybody else. And so we feel like that's pretty special.
One thing too is how you've recruited in Division III, not coming through Division III as an athlete. You spent a lot of time coaching, but I want to dial it back to your career as an athlete. What made you choose Northern Iowa? You had a pretty good career there, 4-time national qualifier. You were an All-American your senior year, but what was the draw from Osage to Cedar Falls?
Well, I obviously I had a brother that went to Nebraska, was an All-American heavyweight there, and there's a big draw to go to Lincoln, Nebraska with him. He was going to be a senior and be a teammate with him, and Mark Cody was the assistant coach, and Tim Newman, and so there was a big draw there. I really liked Iowa State, and then it was really Iowa State, Nebraska, and UNI, and I just fell in love with Coach Greenlee and Coach Briggs and the guys they had coming in. It was mostly Iowa guys, and it was an hour from home, and my sister had gone to school there. My other brother, Dennis, went to Iowa State. And it was just like one of these things that like trying to find my own path. And I really just felt like I clicked with the team a lot better at Northern Iowa. And also the Schwabs were there, and they were from Osage as well. So kind of following their footsteps a little bit, and success rate there. And man, I just felt like that was the best place. I wanted to be a teacher and a coach. I knew that was probably the best place for me.
Yeah, following your career, and I'm gonna skip over some of the wins and losses in your career. Although there are some interesting ties there. Like let's go to, let's see, where is it? Your sophomore year? No, let's not talk about that one. Your freshman year, you wrestled Travis Pfizer from Iowa. Now, I've known Travis since I was in high school. And he's the coach at Grundy, but now his son, Gabe, is wrestling at Loris. Correct. So there it is. You're sitting there looking around. You've got kids in college. Now you're like, man, I wrestle. You're seeing that kid was like, wait a minute. I know that Pfizer. Yep. Wait a minute.
Yeah. I went up to him right away. It was Luther Open, maybe his freshman year. So 2 years ago. And I said, hey, young man, I used to wrestle your dad. And I said, he was one of the toughest son of a guns I ever wrestled. And I said, make sure you say hi to him next time you see him. He said, I will. Thank you. And that was about it. Now this last year, because we weren't able to wrestle in the NWCA championships in Coralville, Jason, I went down there anyway to support Division III wrestling and kind of just make sure I was present. And first guy I run into on the top of the Coralville was Travis Pfizer. He's there watching his son. And I went up and introduced myself again. I've obviously changed a little bit in look since back in the day. I haven't seen him.
He's still.
Oh my gosh!
He would still rip people in half. I mean, he's scared. He scared me early in my career. He could still scare me, even though now we're friends.
He still could do it, but I wanted to make sure I went up and said, and that's the beauty of the sport of wrestling. You might have been enemies back in the day, but man, you got a lot of respect for those guys. That my neck is still a little bit sore when I think about it in the mornings from Travis Pfizer.
Now we are going to touch on the sophomore year right now because we need to figure out how much angst do you still have for Mike Moyer, because it was his guy that knocked you out of the All-American podium, Johnny Curtis, that year.
Talk about this.
Okay, we're going to move forward. We're moving forward.
Right. Go ahead. That's good.
But good. I just wanted to see if you ever look at Moyer and be like, you dog.
I just shake his hand and just like, good job, and that's on me, right? I didn't win the match. That's on me.
I'm figuring it's been almost 30 years. Is the statute of limitations ever run out on that?
Yeah, I still remember that. But I think one of the biggest things, honestly, Jason, it's helped me so much as a coach. And when these guys go through highs and lows, and like you can pat them on the back, and I've been there, man. I've been in your shoes. That round of 12 and 3 years, 2 years, I think maybe even 3 years where I didn't place, and would that change my life and my career? Who knows? But right, I'd still be here talking to Jason Bryant. And so I think that, yes, I do remember that. Now when I see Mike again, I will probably bring it up.
Although 93, you've got to win over a world champion. You beat Les Gutchis.
I did, yeah.
Your junior year. I mean, he ended up moving down to 177 after that. But you could say you've got to win over Les Gutchis in college. And then your senior year, you end up finishing fourth. Lost to the same guy throughout the course of the tournament twice. But that moment you felt as a sophomore, what the stress going into that blood round match as a senior, what was it like there? What were the differences between the two situations?
Yeah, just the biggest part of just confidence and believing in myself. Man, I've looked back through that and it's helped so much as a coach to see these guys and help, all these guys I've had from high school days to college at Wartburg to college here at UW-La Crosse, helping guys when they get to that round of that thought process that it is possible. It is a world of emotion and just knowing that I placed, and I went back and kind of laid down and the first guy that came up to me was Dave Schultz. Dave had come to UNI to help coach and worked with us a little bit in the years prior and had spent some time with Coach Briggs, taught him how to parachute, how to jump out of planes. And so,
now look at Coach Briggs now.
Yeah. Right.
What's he do? He's jumping out of everything, climbing up everything.
He jumps out of everything, climbs everything. But so then he in turn would come and work with us. So I got an opportunity to work with a world champ, an Olympic champ. And he was one of the first guys that came up to me. He goes, I knew you could do it. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. And so it's just a huge relief, weight off the shoulders. Like, then he finally started opening up and all the bad habits. I mean, it's a long story, but it was one of the greatest feelings. And And so cool when our guys get to do it here at the national meet. And yeah, there was a big difference of being upset. But a long story short, with Les Gutches too, like I don't bring that up very often because you've seen Les Gutches,
Yeah,
right?
his arms are bigger than you
Yeah, and
now.
so like we were at the Wisconsin Wrestling Federation. He was in as a guest speaker, and somebody says, "Hey, Malecek, didn't you beat Les Gutches?" Nah. And Les goes, "Yes, you did. Come here." I was like, "Oh, this is gonna get ugly," and he was awesome with it. Very, very professional about it. But yeah, I had a couple good wins in college.
Couple good ones. Yeah. I mean, you're on the podium now. Now, after you spent some time teaching, then you end up at Wartburg. So there's a line there from Northern Iowa to Wartburg,
Yep.
which, there's obviously the Jim Miller connection, but what did the opportunity, how did that present itself to end up going to coach at Wartburg? And how much did you know about Division III before you actually, landed in Waverly?
Yeah, and that's a great thing because there's so many great men and women in Division III. But I tell you, when I was my first teaching job, I was out in Alta, really a small little town out by Storm Lake, Iowa. Right out of college, I went out there for 2 years, and while I was out there, I'd do high school practices, and then I would drive over to Buena Vista with Al Baxter, the legendary coach Al Baxter, and work with their upper weights, their 67 to heavyweights. And we were fortunate enough that year. I think we had 3 All-Americans, and then the heavyweight won the national title. So I was training with some really good guys. And I was like, man, this Division III I like this. This is awesome. These guys are willing to put the time and energy in. And it got me back into a higher level wrestling. And so then I moved back to Cedar Rapids in Iowa City and was working at Xavier and teaching and coaching, and had kept in touch with Coach Miller as he was an assistant coach at UNI when I was there. And I knew he was at Wartburg, but really didn't pay that much attention in Division III. And then just kind of had some life-changing stuff happen. My dad passed away and things were just kind of rough in it. And I kind of was thinking for something new. And Coach Miller showed up and said, "Hey, man, why don't you come on and be my full-time assistant at Wartburg?" I was like, I just didn't know, but it gave me a chance to move closer to home, to family. I was only going to be 45 minutes away from my mom, and had just, kind of a great opportunity. Took a big pay cut, and Coach Miller said, "Just be patient with it. It'll happen and get better." And next thing you know, I spent 6 years at Wartburg and got to be on an amazing coaching staff, and some of the young men that came through there, and met my wife there. I mean, holy smokes, Wartburg treated me great, and I had a great experience there.
What do you think of Joe's Nighthawk?
I love Joe's Nighthawk. That was great. That's a great place. They just had their fight night.
Just had the fight night. I was going to ask you about that. I mean,
yeah, that was that's a great night. I had some guys, text me like, "We got to get something like that going in Wisconsin." And like, it's a huge compliment to them in the great state of Iowa that, have some event like that to really sponsor wrestling and kind of showcase wrestling. That's pretty cool. I think every state should have that.
Yeah, it's definitely fun. I know Kevin Dresser was kind of holding court a little bit there at the end. He's got
back.
Yeah, and then I think Schwab has to do a beer bong of a Mountain Dew.
Yep.
No, he has to do a non-alcoholic beer,
yeah.
And then Dresser has to do the Mountain Dew. If you've ever tried to chug a soda, it just doesn't. It hurts.
Not good.
Yeah. So and then that's where you really probably saw the pinnacle of not probably, you did. The Battle of the Bergs, into which you now at La Crosse have been trying to chip away and win titles there. You've been second in 3 different occasions. But when you see Augsburg Wartburg for the first time as part of that environment, what does it really do for you, and what does it really do to sell Division III wrestling?
Yeah, I think it's a great rivalry, and I really don't want to talk about Wartburg and Augsburg, but I mean,
clearly, you've been part of it.
Yeah, I was part of it. It was great. It was a great experience. I mean, man, hats off to those 2 programs. I mean, and I think there's nothing but respect. I mean, you can hate them or you can do this and like try to cheap. I'm like, dude, sometimes you just got to say, hey, those guys have done a great job. They've been consistent, and you build your program and find your own niche to try to how you can get your program to that level instead of complaining about them. Like, you just take your program to a different level and take care of yourself. And so I think it's really cool. I mean, it brings a lot of spotlight, and some people have a little more maybe egos and want the attention on them. I think it's great for Division III, and everybody's going to give you your best shot when you wrestle those guys. And so I think they've done a good job with it, but I think I've noticed it more now as I get older, Jason. I'm 51 years old. You start looking back and like, man, I was part of something that was pretty special at Wartburg. I mean, all-time scoring team in 2003, getting to be in some of those guys' corners that have done amazing things and be on that coaching staff. I mean, geez, I must have missed some staff meetings where they were talking about winning national titles, because Nick's won 9, Keller's won like 18, and Miller won 47, whatever. I mean, they all won national titles. I was the only one that hasn't. I must have missed those meetings, man. But they have some amazing people on that campus that I'm aware of that when I was there, and obviously, like I said, I met my wife there too, and we had nothing but total support and love from the great College of Wartburg. So, but yeah, it's pretty special for Division III.
When we look at the landscape of Division III coaches, there aren't that many Division I alums, let alone Division I All-Americans, that are head coaches in Division III that stick around. I know before we talk, we're going to be missing some people here, but obviously John Ostendorp at Coe, Russell at Iowa, Steve Marionetti, at Elmhurst, Illinois, Johnny Johnson, Oklahoma. He's been at Stevens Point since, I don't know, maybe just after Moses graduated, perhaps. I mean, he was in that era. Sorry, Johnny. But you've got legit chops here coaching, and the decision to go for a head job at Division III, even though it seems like a lot of people that want to coach at the college level have that Division I mindset. It's that or nothing. What was the allure to La Crosse, and why has it been such a great 16 years for you there?
Jason, I think the biggest thing is probably my mentor was just with Coach Miller and seeing the success that he had and what you could build and still, I think I took it just to a different level that I'm a big family man. I mean, I got 4 daughters and I really like spending time with my wife and my family. And I'm still able to do that, but still put in a million hours. I'm not traveling as much. There's a big allure to Division III for me that you can put a million hours in, but I still get to be a dad. I still get to be a husband. And that's really important to me. And I think that was part of it, but also the part that just because there's a number behind that D, that doesn't make you the wrestler you are. Like we've had guys place at Midlands championships. Bebeto Yiwa went on and wrestled in the world championships. Richard Carlson out of Minnesota, he's wrestled in world championships in Greco. Eric Tuhey, another guy from Minnesota, has been on the Olympic ladder for Greco at 211. I mean, it doesn't matter that number behind the D. And so I think it's just really the amount of guys we get. And I feel like it's almost a little more of an even playing field with all the Division III schools, that everybody's pretty close to what everybody else has, where I don't think it's that way at Division I. And man, the young men you get here, it's not about the money. It is about the experience they're going to get. And they love wrestling. They want to be in wrestling, battling every day, training. We had 6 o'clock morning lifts this morning. The guys are doing drill sessions in a little bit. Then in the afternoon. And my gosh, I mean, those guys are doing that. There's no scholarship. So, and I know I've said that a couple of times, but I think that's so key. These guys love wrestling and they want to be around it. So then to be around guys like that and go on and see guys go into medical school, guys go on, own businesses, be teachers, coaches. We got a lot of guys out coaching Division III and JUCO now with Andy Hackenmuller and Mike Schmitz over at RCTC. Bebeto Yiwa is now at Davenport and D2. Cook is over at North Central. I mean, they're all over the place. So there's a big lure of being in Division III, Jason. I really believe that.
We look at the people that have come in. You mentioned Bebeto Yiwa. I'm curious how you found him. How does he end up in Michigan to your place? And then how much of his development was there? How much of it did you actually have to coach? I mean, where does he make the leap from? Where does this kid come from to multiple time national champion?
I showed him everything. No, no, I tell you what, that young man, and I get no credit for that at all. That was our assistant coach at the time had recruited him, saw him down at Virginia at Virginia Beach, and saw him and kind of sight unseen and jumped in a train and came up in the fall and enrolled at UW-La Crosse. And so was here, and you could kind of tell there was something special in him, but you had no idea, right? You had no idea, but man, you want to talk about work ethic. I mean, I think that's one of the beautiful things about Division III. You don't maybe have that high level talent, maybe that they see in the Division I room, but these guys that have been really successful, like a Bebeto Yiwa, his work ethic was unbelievable. I mean, times where you're locking the wrestling room, he's kind of breaking in just to get in there, just so he can work out. I mean, the guy is phenomenal. Still is. I mean, he's still in great shape, but we saw the development, but very coachable, would go and watch film nonstop. And just one of those guys that like was a grinder and would do anything you asked of him and then above and beyond. And so one of the more quiet young men, probably get 10 words out of him a year, and just amazing. I'm telling you what, that guy was pretty solid, and that's still the highs of seeing him win 2 national titles. And then him getting beat his senior year in the finals was probably one of the biggest heartbreaks that I've had as a coach in 28 years. I didn't do my job, didn't have him prepared, didn't have him relaxed. I mean, I take a lot of blame for that loss and here at home and for a national championship right down in the La Crosse Center.
Now, I'm curious on the development, because we use a guy like Tervel Delagnev as an example, going Division II at Nebraska Kearney. when you get an athlete like Yewa or Tervel, when they come into a room that's not, if they come into a Division One room right away, they may not develop as well as they do in Division Three or Division Two. Why do you think that is the case in say Bebeto Yewa's case? I mean, how do you think he might have done right out of the chute at say Northern Iowa?
Right.
I mean, not to put Schwab on the spot, but using your experience.
Right, absolutely, and actually, Schwab has worked out with Bebeto. We tried to hook that up back in the day so he could get challenged, by Schwab. But I think one of the biggest things that to that question, Jason, is that he got success early. He got a little bit of success in the room and could really build on it. Really kind of got him motivated for college wrestling. Coming from Lansing, Michigan, I don't think that he had really thought a ton about college wrestling and being a college student. And that gave him a chance to be successful and kind of at a slower pace and kind of work his way in. And, I think that's probably one of the biggest keys, that he got that opportunity to kind of get his feet wet, like get settled in instead of coming in a room right away and getting whooped like we all did. I don't think I scored till December on Rich Powers or some of those guys. It was a long time. And I think of that for some of these guys that come through, like maybe Tervel or even Bebeto, that they got a chance to have a little success.
We look at La Crosse. Had mentioned you guys had finished second on 3 different occasions, been in a couple national duels finals. When you're knocking on the door, the jump from going from 10th, 11th to 2nd, 3rd is significant. How tough is that jump? I mean, you haven't made it just yet, but to how much work's got to be put in to go from 2 to 1? Because sometimes it takes a perfect storm of athletes to we're going to make a run for it this year. I mean, doing it every single year is sometimes unrealistic a lot of places. But what's it going to take for you guys to go from you've been second 3 different times in your tenure to winning that title and dethroning those Bergs?
Right. And I think that, that's one of those things that gets you up in the morning, gets you moving. But, we went through the stretch there with even Tim Fader, who was here before me, and Nate Score. They did a great job building a program, having it going. And then when I took over, I mean, we've had that opportunity to be in those trophies. And how do you get to that next level? And I think it got to that point where we weren't doing, myself included, we weren't doing the things the right way, and really kind of had to reform ourselves in 2016, 2017, kind of rebooted the whole program, got some different guys in here and had different values, different mission, different goals, and really kind of taking it from there. And you see our steady increase as we get going. As you said, a perfect storm. We felt like that perfect storm was kind of coming last year. We had some guys come back for a 5th year. We had a 2-time All-American Conrad Ernst come back, and Sam Wenzel came back for his 5th year. And we had some guys coming back that just doesn't happen here. Our guys come in and graduate in 4 years and get out and out into the workforce. And these guys made the decision. We got something pretty special. We're hosting at home. And that perfect storm was kind of coming together. We felt like we had a really solid team. And then obviously COVID hit and we couldn't compete. So I think, Jason, to answer your question, that we feel like we're doing the right things, getting the right guys, and you got to build. And it's not just one day, one summer, one recruiting class, one transfer. It's like continuous. It's like nonstop. And it's awesome. It's a great feeling to be chasing and chasing and chasing, because you got teams in your conference that are chasing you and you're chasing them. And then you're trying to get even better, and you're trying to get the best guys to fit in your program, and barring injury, and kind of have a little bit of luck on your side, but really just a lot of hard work and having everybody on the same page. We talk about that all the time, about believing in the program and where we want to go with this program. We got a great group of guys. I've been, like I said, I've been coaching 28 years, 16 years here. And this has probably been one of my favorite not favorite, but fun groups of they're just a bunch of hard workers, and there's no superstars in the group. They're going to come in and bust their tail every day. And I feel like we got the right guys that really love wrestling, that kind of want to be in here every day, all the time. And that gets you excited as a coach to kind of see what's going to happen.
If I'm doing the math right, the school has 22 individual titles all time, going D3 and previously in the NAI. And it looks like 13 of those are on your watch, if my math isn't wrong here. What's it like to put a guy in the finals? What's it like to see Dustin Weinman get his hand raised, to see guys like, Dan Laurent, Bebeto, get their hand raised and know what they go through, and then just to see it as a coach?
It is probably one of the coolest things, and one of the most heartfelt things. And just, I get a little goosebumps just thinking about it. It's awesome, because not everybody gets to do that, right? I never had that opportunity, and to see it kind of gives you a little, kind of settles some of those losses like you were bringing up earlier. You kind of forget about those a little bit when you see these guys.
My job to bring up those stupid losses, right?
There's a lot of you kind of forget about those. You kind of like take that deep sigh and man, all that they came through and all that they went through and everything they did to get to that point. And then That's that super highs, Jason, but then also have the super lows. I mean, we've had, I think, 15 guys in the finals and 13 won titles. We've only had 2 guys not win it. And so, like, you feel like you got a pretty good streak. Once you get to the finals, we feel like we prepare pretty well getting into that. And I guess 3 guys haven't won it. But, that feeling of the emotions for their family, their parents, how that's going to help them throughout the rest of their lives. But man, the highs and the lows, then all of a sudden you got that guy that got beat in the semifinals that you felt like could have had a chance to win a national title. But Jason, we call it the La Crosse leap. You get a chance to run in the corner because it's Lambeau leap, obviously with the Packers, but we do a La Crosse leap and they get to jump. And I was always nervous. I always made our assistant coach, Ryan Allen, have Dan Laurent jump into his arms because he was too big. He was going to crush me. So
yeah, Ryan Allen would crush people if he's going to you. I mean, like, okay, that's why it's like you need a guy that's big in the corner.
You. Come here. I'll hug you. That's all.
Once you get above 174, you're like, do I really want to take this one?
It's got good assistance. You have really good assistance.
Now, looking at the competition within the state of Wisconsin, we mentioned Johnny, you mentioned Tim Fader, who was at Whitewater, or is now at Eau Claire, and the development that setting the table up, because Whitewater's been what's it like to go through one to see what Tim set the table for you, and then to sit there and have to go after him constantly. It's like, man, you were there, now you're there. Come on, can't you just go away, coach?
He's done a great job. I mean, what a compliment to him. Obviously you're bitter rivals and you want to beat him, but man, he's done a great job everywhere he's been. He's an amazing coach. At here, he was really good here. He went to Whitewater, built that. Now he's at Eau Claire doing a great job, and he puts good people around him, and he does amazing things. And Matty Zawaska, who's a UW alum, is now at the Whitewater head coach, does a great job there. Ephraim at Oshkosh is doing great. And Johnny obviously is the old statesman of our conference, and just a guy you respect. His guys are just going to fight like a son of a gun. And then, now we got Trevor Kittleson moved into UW-Platteville. And so he's bringing a ton of energy, brought some transfers in, and they're going to be really good. And so you get a lot of these schools, man, it's like week in, week out. And, everybody talks about the Iowa Conference, give them credit, what they've done. But man, I'm just really proud of this WIAC. I think these guys do a great job. They're out recruiting, working their tails off, and trying to make the great state of Wisconsin even better.
Before we close, we've got the event again coming up November 12th at Mitchell Hall. We've got D1, D2, D3, 7 p.m. But I want to talk about the staff you've got there, not on your coaching staff, because, what Ross and the crew and you guys have done there has been so much fun to watch. But I want to talk about the athletic staff, starting with your AD, Kim Bloom. And then, I met Aaron Hansen at the last time we actually had the national championships in La Crosse, longtime SID Dave Johnson. You got a crew of administrators here that when it comes to hosting events, they're like, yes, let's do this. What's it like to have that type of administrative support?
It's great, Jason. That's one of the biggest things that I said when we first did this, the very first time we hosted. I tried to stick my nose in everything and run everything, because that was one of the first things I did was at Wartburg. When we were hosting that very first year, I was at Wartburg, and that was kind of part of my job, was to help be on that committee and run that when I was at Wartburg in 2001. And so when I got here, I just assumed that's what I was going to do, as the head coach. But man, I wore myself out. We got to that Friday night session. I was so exhausted, and I don't think I was a very good coach at all that night. And that really hurt. I always said, hey, if we're going to do this, I'm going to make sure I can just coach. You guys can take care of it. But Kim Bloom's done a great job. We've put numerous bids in. We've gotten numerous bids. Her and Aaron Hansen. Obviously, Kim knows wrestling. Her husband wrestled here at UW-La Crosse. She has twin boys. They both wrestled in high school. And so she knows the sport. She loves the sport. She's a big fan of it. She's also on the NCAA championship committee. Having people like that understand and know that they want to have it here, it's an amazing time. You've been here, Jason. We love it. We got the great facilities. We got downtown area. We got everything you need is right here in La Crosse. We should be the permanent site of the NCAA championship. We should. Honestly, I probably should ask him before I said that, Jason.
Well, I know. And Cedar Rapids are hosting this year. Of course, another situation. Dick Simmons has done a great job working with the NCAA running there. So you two can fight over it. I know Brian Allen's in here watching from Johnson and Wales. I know they're ready to get it out in Providence, and I've never been to Rhode Island. So that is one event I'm looking for. But I will say this: if you're a wrestling fan and you don't have the opportunity, say, okay, not everybody can go to the Big Tens. They're out in Lincoln this year. So here's the pitch for that weekend. We're looking at, okay, I love the Division III tournament. I've echoed this and said this multiple times over the course. If you're a sports fan and you like wrestling, this should be the perfect sporting event, because I know this is nerve-wracking for you as a coach, but every year a one seed goes down in the first round. Sometimes it happens multiple times. It is unpredictable, even though the seeds they're pretty good. They're based on the close to the rankings. I mean, it's you might have a guy that doesn't see a whole lot every now and then, just like any other sport, where you look at a rank and be like, oh, is that guy really a number 2 seed? And then he goes and makes the finals. Like, okay, that guy's the number 2 seed, but the 1 seed everybody thought was going to walk to the title goes 2 in Q. I mean, one year, I'm not going to say who it was, didn't make the march. I mean, he was out by the pigtails. So it is unpredictable. Every year there's a Maryland, Baltimore County over UVA, if we want to look at the basketball tournament every year. So there's love it. And I say, I know you being a representative of the university can't talk about the nightlife, or you can maybe not condone the nightlife, but La Crosse, you're going to have fun. If you can't have fun in La Crosse at a wrestling tournament, you don't know how to have fun. So that's another pitch for November 12th. If you don't know how to have fun in La Crosse, you don't know how to fun. If you like wrestling and you like fun, La Crosse is the city. Now, one thing that's also unique about hosting is we're not on campus sites anymore. La Crosse, the city, has the La Crosse Center, which is not a campus facility, so you can host it, U.S. Cellular Center or whatever it's named now. I think it's Power Station or something like that. I'll have to look that up. We're moving to off-campus sites, and having an arena like that still gives you a home field advantage. What's that like to have, the La Crosse Center, which is hosted, going back to the CBA, I think with the La Crosse Catbirds, where it was the old CBA team in there.
Absolutely, Jason.
Yeah, I watched a lot of ESPN up late at night as a kid. I was sad. But anyway, what's it like to have a La Crosse Center and that type of facility to give you guys the opportunity to host things?
And like you had said earlier, having the administration on board, and then, you'll see our faculty and staff, you'll see our chancellors down there at the tournament, and then they're supporting wrestling. And then you'll see business people from the community at the championships, and I think with Art Fahey, who's in charge of the La Crosse Center downtown, they do an amazing job. They just upgraded. They put new $42 million worth into it. And I can't wait to show you guys that when we host in 2024. And it's amazing when you get your alumni to come back, you get fans and families, and when you're recruiting, say, hey, you're going to win a championship right here in downtown La Crosse in front of your home crowd. And we get a ton of people back. We always have the attendance record every time we've hosted. So we want to keep doing that. We want to keep breaking that attendance record and having it right downtown here in La Crosse. It's awesome, Jason. Like you said, you can have some fun. You can park your car, walk to your hotel, walk to the arena, and walk to get food. I'm talking one block. I'm not. Yeah,
you don't have to move your car, especially if you book early.
I'm not talking like all the other cities where we're talking miles to walk. I'm talking 1 or 2 blocks. It's got everything you need.
Yeah, I know when I went down there a couple years ago, and I had the I don't know, it kind of fell flat because a couple years before we were in Cedar Rapids at the top with the Hall of Fame induction, and it was McGovern or Fader, I can't remember which one I think both talked to me about it, about kind of emceeing it, and I'm thinking, okay, this could be kind of a roast, we can poke some fun. So I come out to La Crosse, I'm doing this thing, and I came up with the top 10 things you're going to see at the Division III tournament. I'm poking fun at every coach. I mean, Mike Clayton got 3 warnings before the tournament even started when he was at Stevens. So, but then it was like a formal dinner, and like Lee Kemp is at the table. I'm like, and me and Shane Sparks are up there. He had never been to the tournament, and he'd been a couple times since now. And I taught him how to have fun in La Crosse, thanks to one of the former La Crosse alums who's from Virginia, Jay Wallman. You didn't coach him, but Virginia guy. I think he's still got a road sign for me that may or may not be legal, but statute of limitations may have run out on that tractor crossing. But anyway, that's the type of event you have at Division IIIs. It's family, it's fun. You guys are joking with each other just to see the jawing that goes on in the corners, and it's such a good time. And I hope if we get a 10th of that on November 12th with the triple duel with D1, D2, D3 with what's going on, it's going to be a riot of a good time. So if you are in the neighborhood, it's probably 2.5 hours for me. November 12th, 7 p.m. Mitchell, get your tickets, because Dave, you think this thing's going to sell out?
Yeah, we got a shot to put quite a few people in that gym, and I know there's been a lot of talk about it, and a lot of our guys have been out getting some feelers out, and it's good. We're gonna have a good crowd, and like I said, I didn't care if we had one person show up or 2,800. What we think we're gonna get, that gym's gonna be packed, and we're gonna go out and battle no matter what. You'll see some fun. They've already started doing it on Twitter a little bit between Arkansas, Little Rock, and Wisconsin. And I love it. It just gets everybody fired up. And I'm sure Leroy will bring his guys up, and they're going to come swinging. The Ozarks will come and see what they can do. And we're gonna battle. We got a bunch of new guys, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that duel.
Yeah, I saw some of those guys last week. Saw all the Little Rock guys last week, and saw most of the Ouachita and Ozarks
Yep.
guys. But there's some scrappers out there. There's
Oh,
some
yeah.
definite scrappers, and there's some definitely good coaching. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun
Yep.
for sure. So again, November 12th. That's coming up this Friday at Mitchell Hall, University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. Basically, it's on the river where all the Eagles tend to stand on the ice when it gets cold.
Yes.
Beautiful river, beautiful downtown, beautiful fun. So Dave Malecek, appreciate the time, and we'll see you on Friday.
Thanks, Jason. I appreciate it.